No Sweetness Here by ATA AIDOO. He was beautiful, but that was not important. Beauty does not play such a vital role in a man's life as it does in a woman's, or so people think. If a man's beauty is so ill-mannered as to be noticeable, people discreetly ignore its existence. Only an immodest girl like me would dare comment on a man's beauty. Kwesi is so handsome. I was always telling his mother, if ever I am transferred from this place, I will kidnap him. I enjoyed teasing the dear woman, and she enjoyed being teased by me. She would look scandalized, pleased, and alarmed all in one fleeting moment. Hey, Chicha, you should not say such things. The boy is not very handsome really. But she knew she was lying. Besides, Chicha, who cares whether a boy is handsome or not? Again, she knew that at least she cared, for after all, didn't the boy's wonderful personality throw a warm light on the woman's lively, though already waning beauty? Then gingerly, but in a remarkable matter-of-fact tone, she will voice out her gnawing fear. Please, Chicha, I always know you are just making fun of me, but please, promise me you won't take Kwesi away with you. Almost at once, her tiny mouth would quiver, and she would hide her eyes in a cloth, as if ashamed of her great love and her fears. But I understood. Oh, Mommy, don't cry. You know I don't mean it. Chicha, I am sorry, and I trust you. Only I can't help fearing. Can I? What will I do? Chicha, what will I do should something happen to my child? She will raise her pretty eyes, glistening with unshed tears. Nothing will happen to him, I will assure her. He is a good boy. He does not fight, and therefore there is no chance of anyone beating him. He is not dull, at least not too dull, which means he does not get more cane lashes than the rest of his mates. Chicha, I shall willingly submit to any canes if he gets his sums wrong. She will hastily intervene. Don't be funny. A little warming up on a cold morning wouldn't do him any harm. But if you say so, I won't object to hitting that soft flesh of yours. At this, the tension will break and both of us begin laughing. Yet, I always went away with the image of a quivering mouth and unshed tears in mind. Mami Ama loved her son. And this is a silly statement, as silly as saying Mami Ama is a woman. Which mother would not? At the time of the story, he had just turned 10 years old. He was in primary class 4 and quite tall for his age. His skin was as smooth as shea butter and as dark as coal. His black hair was as soft as his mother's. His eyes were of a kind that always remind one of a long dream on a hot afternoon. It is indecent to dwell on the boy's physical appearance, but then Kwesi's beauty was indecent. My watch read 4:15 p.m., that ambiguous time of the day which these people, despite their great Asian astronomic knowledge, have always failed to identify. For the very young and very old, it is certainly evening, for they have stayed at home all day and they begin to persuade themselves that the day is ending. Bored with their own company, they sprowl in the marketplace or by their own walls. The children begin to whimper for their mothers, for they are tired of playing house. Fancying themselves starving, they will go back to what was left of their lunch. But really, they only pray that mother will come home from the farm soon. The very old certainly do not go back on lunch remains, but They do bite back at old conversational topics which were fresh at 10 o'clock. I say, Kwame, as I am saying this morning, my first wife was a most beautiful woman. Old Kwame would say, oh yes, yes, she was an unusually beautiful girl. I remember her. Old Kwame would nod his head, but the truth was he was tired of the story and he was sleepy. It's high time the young people came back from the farm. But I was a teacher and I went the white man's way. School was over. Mami Ahmed's hut was at one end of the village and the school was at another. Nevertheless, it was not a long walk from school to a place because Bamso is not really a big village. I had left my books so little Grace hastened to take home for me. So I had only my little clock in my hand and I was walking in a leisurely way. As I passed the old people, they shouted their greetings. It was always a fantasized form of English. Could even know Chicha? Then I'll answer, could he mean Nana? When I greeted first, they will respond, thank you. Chicha, how are you? Nana, I am well. And how are the children? Nana, they are well. Yo, that is good. When an old man felt inclined to be talkative, especially if he had had more than me for audience, he would compliment me on the work I was doing. Then he would go on to the aspects of education, especially female education, ending up with quoting Dr. Agri. So, this evening too, I was delayed, but it was as well, for when I arrived at the hut, Mami Amma had just arrived from the farm. The door opened, facing the village, and so I could see her. Oh, that picture is still vivid in my mind. She was sitting on a low stool with her load before her, like all the loads the other women would bring from the farm into their homes. It was colorful with miscellaneous articles. At the very bottom of the wide wooden tray were the cassava and yam tubers, rich muddy brown, the color of the earth. Next were the plantain, of the green colors of the woods from which they came. Then there were the gay vegetables, the scarlet pepper, garden eggs, golden pawpaw, and crimson tomatoes. Over this riot of colors, the little woman's eyes were fixed, absorbed, while the tiny hands delicately picked the pepper. I made a scratching noise at the door. She looked up and smiled. Her smile was a wonderful flashing whiteness. Oh, Chicha, I have just arrived. So I see. Ayuko. Yeah, my own. And how are you, my child? Very well, mother. And you? Thank you. Do sit down. There's a stool in that corner. Sit down. Life is a battle. What can we do? We are just trying, my daughter. Why were you longer at the farm today? After weeding that plot I told you about last week, I thought I would go for 1 or 2 yams. Ah, I cried. You know, tomorrow is Ahoba. Even if one does not feel happy, one must have some yams for old Aho. Yes, so I understand. The old saviors deserve it. After all, it is not often that a man offers himself as a sacrifice to the gods to save his people from a pestilence. No, Chicha, we were so lucky. But Mami Amma, why do you look so sad? After all, the yams are quite big. She gave me a small grin, looking at the yams she had now packed at the corner. Do you think so? Well, they are the best of the lots. My daughter, When life fails you, it fails you totally. One's yams reflect the total sum of one's life, and mine look wretched enough. Oh, mommy, why are you always speaking in this way? Look at Kwesi. How many mothers can boast of such a son? Even though he is only one, consider those who have none at all. Perhaps some woman is sitting at some corner envying you. She chuckled. What an unhappy woman she must be who would envy Amma. But thank you. I should be grateful for Kwesi. After that, we were quiet for a while. I always loved to see her moving quietly about her work. Having finished unpacking, she knocked the dirt out of the tray and started making fire to prepare the evening meal. She started humming a religious lyric. She was a Methodist. We are fighting. We are fighting. We are fighting for Canaan, the heavenly kingdom above. I watched her and my eyes became misty. She looked so much like my own mother. Presently, the fire began to smoke. She turned round. Chicha, Mami Ama, do you know that tomorrow I am going to have a formal divorce? Oh, and I could not help the dismay in my voice. I had heard, soon after my arrival in the village, that the parents of the most beautiful boy were as good as divorced. I had hoped they would come to a respectful understanding for the boy's sake. Later on, when I got to know his mother, for her own sweet self's sake too, but as time went on, I had realized this could not be, or was not even desirable. Kojofi was a selfish and bullying man, whom no decent woman ought to have married. He got on marvelously with his two other wives, but they were three of a feather. Yet, I was so sorry to hear Mommy was going to have a final breach with him. Yes, I am, she went on. I should. What am I going on like this for? 7 years is a long time to bear ill usage from a man coupled with contempt and insult from his wives. What have I done to deserve the abuse of his sisters and his mother? Does she insult you too? I exclaimed. Why not? Don't you think she would? Considering that I don't buy her the most expensive clothing on the market and I don't give her the best fish from my soup, like her daughters-in-law do. The mean old witch. Chicha, don't laugh. I am quite sure she wanted to eat Kwesi, but I baptized him and she couldn't. Oh, don't say that, Mommy. I am quite sure they all like you, only you don't know. My child, they don't. They hate me. But what happened? I asked the question I had wanted to ask for so long. You would ask, Chicha. I don't know. They suddenly began hating me when Kwesi was barely 2. Kojofi reduced my housekeeping money, and sometimes he refused to give me anything at all. He wouldn't eat my food. At first, I used to ask him why. He would always reply, "It's nothing." If I had not been such an unlucky woman, his mother and sisters might have taken my side, but for me, there was no one. That planting time, although I was his first wife, he allotted me the smallest, tiniest plot. Hey, what did you say about it? What could I say? At that time, my mother was alive, though my father was already dead. When I complained to her about the treatment I was getting from my husband, she told me that in marriage, a woman must sometimes be a fool, but I have been a fool for far too long a time. Oh, I frowned. Mother has died and left me, and I was an only child too. My aunts are very busy after the affairs of their own daughters. I've told my uncle several times, but they never took me seriously. They feel I am only a discontented woman. You? I asked in surprise. Perhaps You will not think so, but there are several who do feel like that in this village. She paused for a while she stared at the floor. You don't know. I have been the topic of gossip for many years. Now, I only want to live on my own, looking after my child. I don't think I'll ever get any more children. Chicha, our people say, a bad marriage kills the soul. Mine is fit for burial. Mommy, don't grieve. My daughter, my mother and father, who brought me to this world, have left me alone, and I have stopped grieving for them. When death summoned them, they were glad to lay down their tools and go to their parents. Yes, they loved me all right, but even they had to leave me. Why should I make myself unhappy about a man for whom I ceased to exist a long time ago? She went to the big basket, took out some cassava and plantain, and sitting down, began peeling them. Remembering she had forgotten the wooden bowl into which she would put the food, she got up to go for it. In this case, I continued the conversation. What will happen to Kwesi? What will happen to him? She asked in surprise. This is no problem. They may tell me to give him to his father. And would you? No, I wouldn't. And would you succeed in keeping him if his father insisted? Well, I will struggle, for my son is his father's child, but he belongs to my family. I sat there listening to these references to the old age customs of which I had been ignorant. I was surprised. She washed the food, now cut into lumps, and arranged it into the cooking pot. She added water and put it on the fire. She blew at it, and it burst into flames. Mamiama, has not your husband got a right to take Kwesi from you? I asked. He has, I suppose, but not entirely. Anyway, if the elders, who will make the divorce settlement, asked me to let him go and stay with his father, I wouldn't refuse. You are a brave woman. Life has taught me to be brave, she said, looking at me and smiling. By the way, what is the time? I told her, it is 6 minutes to 6 o'clock, and Kwesi has not yet come home. She exclaimed, Mommy, I am here, a peeping voice announced. My husband, my brother, my father, my all in all, where are you? And there he was, all at once. For a careworn village woman, the sun might well have been rising from the east instead of setting behind the coconut palms. Her eyes shone. Kwesi saluted me, and then his mother. He was a little shy of me and ran away into the inner chamber. He was a tad, which meant he had thrown his books down. Kwesi, his mother called out to him. I have always told you to put your books down gently. I did not buy them with sun, and you ought to be careful with them. He returned to where we were. I looked at him. He was very dirty. There was sand in his hair, ears, and eyes. His uniform was smeared with mud, crayon, and berry juice. His braces were hanging down on one side. His mother gave an affectionate frown. Kwesi, you are very dirty. Just look at yourself. You are a disgrace to me. Anyone would think your mother does not look after you well. I was very much amused, for I knew she meant this for my ears. Kofi just stood there, without a care in the world. Can't you play without putting sand in your hair? His mother persisted. I am hungry, he announced. I laughed. Shame, shame. And your teacher is here. Teacher, you see? He does not fetch me water. He does not fetch me firewood. He does not weed my farm on Saturdays as other schoolboys do for their mothers. He only eats and eats. I looked at him. He fled again into the inner chamber for shame. We both started to laugh at him. After a time, I got up to go. Chicha, I would like you to eat before you went away. That's why I'm hurrying up with the food. Mommy tried to detain me. Oh, it does not matter. You know, I eat here when I come. But today, I must go away. I have the children's books to mark. Then, I must not keep you away from your work. Tomorrow, I will come to see you. I promised. Thank you. Sleep well, Mommy. Sleep well, my daughter. I stepped into the open air. The sun was far receding. I walked slowly away. Just before I was out of earshot, Mommy shouted after me. And remember, if Christy gets his sums wrong, I will come to school to receive his lashes. If only you would tell me. I shouted back. Then I went away. The next day was Ahobada. It was a day of rejoicing for everyone. In the morning, old family quarrels were being patched up. In Mami Ame's family, all became peaceful. Her aunts had, or thought they had, reconciled themselves to the fact that when Mami Ame's mother was dying, she had instructed her sisters, much to their chagrin, to give all her jewels to her only child. This had been one of the reasons why the aunts and cousins had left Amma so much to her own devices. After all, she has her mother's goods. What else does she need? They were often saying. However, today, aunts, cousins, and nieces have come to a better understanding. Ahoba is a season of goodwill. Nevertheless, Amma is going to have a formal divorce today. It had not been laid down anywhere in the education ordinance that school children were to be given holidays during local festivals, and so, no matter how much I sympathized with the kids, I could not give them a holiday. Although Ahoba was such an important occasion for them, they naturally felt it a grievance to be forced to go to school while their friends at home were eating so much yam and meat. But they had their revenge on me. They fidgeted the whole day. What was worse, the classroom was actually one big shed. When I left the class 1 cheeks to look at the older ones, they chatted. When I turned to them, class 2 and class 3 began shouting. Oh, it was a fine situation. In the afternoon, after having gone home to taste some of the festival dishes, they nearly drove me mad. So, I was relieved when it was 3 o'clock. Feeling no sense of guilt, I turned them all out to play. They rushed out to the field. I packed my books on the table for little Grace to take home. My intention was to go and see the divorce proceedings, which had begun at 1 o'clock, and then come back at 4 to dismiss them. These divorce cases took hours to settle, and I hope I will hear some of it. As I walked down between the rows of desks, I hit my leg against one. The book on it tumbled down. As I picked them up, I saw they belonged to Kwesi. It was the desk he shared with a little girl. I began thinking about him and the unhappy connection he had with what was going on at that moment down in the village. I remember every word of the conversation I'd had with his mother the previous evening. I became sad at the prospect of a possible separation from a mother who loved him so much and whom he loved. From his infancy, they had known only each other, a lonely mother and a lonely son. Through the hot sun, she had carried him on her back as she weeded her cornfield. How could she dare put him down under a tree in the shade when there was no one to look after him? Other women had their own younger sisters or those of their husbands to help with the baby, but she had had no one. The only face the little one had known was his mother's, and now, but I told myself, I am sure it will be all right with him. Will it? I asked myself. Why not? He's a happy child. Does that solve the problem? Not altogether. But, no buts. No one should think of the house into which he'll be taken now. He may not be a favorite there. But my other voice told me that a child need not be a favorite to be happy. I had to bring the one-man argument to an end. I had to hurry. Passing by the field, I saw some boys playing football. At the goal at the further end was a head full of hair shining in the afternoon sun. I knew the body to which it belonged. A goalkeeper is a dubious character in infant soccer. He is either a good goalkeeper, and that is why he is at the goal, which is usually difficult to know in a child, or he is a bad player. If he is a bad player, he might as well be in the goal as anywhere else. Kwesi loved football, that was certain, and he was always the goalkeeper. Whether he was good or not, I have never been able to see. Just as I passed, he caught a ball and the team clapped. I heard him give a little squeaking noise that passed for his laugh. No doubt he was a happy child. Now, I really ran into the village. I immediately made my way to Nana Kum's house, for the case was going on there. There was a crowd in front of the house. Why were there so many people about? Then, I remembered that, it being a holiday, everyone was at home. And of course, after eating and drinking of palm wine in the morning and midday, divorce proceedings certainly provides an agreeable diversion, especially when other people are involved and not ourselves. The courtyard was a long one, and I jostled to be where Mami AC was sitting, pieces of comments floating into my ears. The elders certainly have settled the case fairly, someone was saying, but it seemed as if Kujofi had no strong proof for his argument. Another was saying, well, they both have been sensible. If one feels one can't live with a woman, one might as well divorce her. And I hate a woman who clings to a man, a third said. Finally, I reached her side. Around her were her family, her two aunts, AC and Amma, her cousins, and two uncles. To the right were the elders who were judging the case. Opposite were Kojofi and his family. I have come, Mami Amma, I announced myself. She looked at me. You ought to have come here earlier. The case has been settled already. And how are things? I inquired. I am a divorced woman. What were his grounds for wanting to divorce you? He said I had done nothing. He only wanted to. Hey, only the two of you know what went wrong. The younger aunt cried out, reproachfully. If after his saying that, you had refused to be divorced, he would have had to pay the ejecting fee, but now he has got the better of you. But aunt, Mommy protested, how could I refuse to be divorced? It's up to you. I know it's your own affair. Only I wouldn't like your mother's ghost to think that we haven't looked after you. I agree with you, the elder aunt said. Mami Amma, what's your debt? I asked her. It is quite a big sum. I hope that you two had something to reckon against him. I did. He reckoned the dowry, the 10 cloths he gave me, the knocking fee. All this had been heard by Kojofi and his family, and soon they made us aware of it. Kojo, his younger sister burst out, you forgot to reckon the 9 fee. No, yeah, I did not forget, Kojofi told her. She had no brothers to whom I would give the fee. It's all right then, his second sister added. But the rest of his women folks took this to be a signal for more free comments. She is a bad woman, and I think you are well rid of her, one aunt screamed. I think she's a witch, the youngest sister said. Oh, that she is. Anyway, only witches have no brothers or sisters. They eat them in their mother's womb long before they are born. Amma's aunts and cousins had said nothing so far. They were inclined to believe that Amma was a witch too, but Mami sat still. When the comments had gone down a bit, she resumed the conversation with me. As I was saying, Chicha, He also reckoned the price of the trunk he had given me and all the cost of the medicine he gave me to make me have more children. There was only the cooking cost for me to reckon against him. Have you got the money to pay the debt? I asked her. No, but I am going to pay it. My uncles will pay it out of the family fund and put the debt down against my name. Oh, but you are a fool, Mami Ahmed's eldest aunt shouted at her. I say, you are a fool, she insisted. But aunt, Mami Ahmed began to protest. Yes, I hope you are not going to answer back. I was born before your mother, and now she is dead. I am your mother. Besides, when she was alive, I could scold her when she went wrong, and now I say, you are a fool. For 7 years, you have struggled to look after a child. Whether he ate or not was your affair alone. Whether he had any cloth or not did not concern any other person. When Kwesi was a child, he had no father. When he was nearly dead of measles, no grandmother looked in. As for aunts, he began getting them when he started going to school. And now, you are allowing them to take him away from you? Now that he is grown enough to be counted among the living, a father knows he has got a son. So, Kojofi's mother sneered at her. What did you think? That Kojofi will give his son as a present to you, eh? The boy belongs to his family, but he must be of some service to his father too. Have I called your name? Ahmed's aunt asked the old woman. You have not called her name, but you are speaking against her son. This again was from Kojofi's younger sister. And who are you to answer my mother back? Ahmed's 2 cousins demanded of her. Go away, but who are you people? Go away too, you greedy lords. It is you who are greedy, witches. You are always calling other people witches. Only a witch can know a witch. Soon, everyone was shouting at everyone else. The people who had come started going home, and only the most curious ones stood by to listen. Mami Esi was murmuring something under her breath, which I could not hear. I persuaded her to come with me. All that time, no word had passed between her and her ex-husband. As we turned to go, Kojofi's mother shouted at her, You are hurt, but this is what you deserve. We will get the child. We will. What did you want to do with him? Mami Ahmed turned around to look at her. Why are you putting yourself in so much trouble for? When Nanakum said the boy ought to go and stay with his father, did I make any objection? He is at school. Go and fetch him. Tomorrow, you can send your carriers to come and fetch his belongings from my hut. These words were said quietly. Then, I remembered suddenly that I had to hurry to school to dismiss the children. I told Mami Ahmed to go home, but I would try and see her before night. This time, I did not go by the main street. I took the back door through the streets and lanes. It was past 4 already. As I hurried along, I heard a loud roaring sound, which I took to be echoes of quarrel, so I went my way. When I reached the school, I did not like what I saw. There was no single childish soul anywhere, but everyone's books were there. The shed was untidy as ever. Little Grace had left my books too. Of course, I was more than puzzled. How naughty these children are. How did they dare to disobey me when I had told them to wait for me here until I came to dismiss them? It was no use looking around the place. They were not there. They need discipline. I threatened to the empty shed. I picked up my books and clock. Then I noticed that Kwesi's desk was clean of all his books. Nothing need be queer about this. He had probably taken his home. As I was descending the hill the second time that afternoon, I saw that the whole school was at the other end of the main street. I was not prepared for what I saw. As if intentionally, the children had formed a circle. When some of them saw me, they began to tell me what had happened, but I did not hear a word. In the middle of the circle, Kwesi was lying flat on his back. His right arm was swollen to the size of his head. I simply stood there with my mouth open. From the backyard, Mami Amma screamed, "I was drowning. People of Bamso, come and save me." Soon, the whole village was there. "What is the matter? What has happened?" "Kofi has been bitten by a snake." "Where?" "Where?" "At school. He was playing football." "Where? What happened?" "Bitten by a snake." "A snake! A snake!" Questions and answers were tossed from mouth to mouth in the shocked evening air. Meanwhile, those who knew about snake bites were giving names of different cures. Kwesi's father was looking anxiously at his son. The strong, powerful man was almost stupid with shock and alarm. Dose upon dose was forced down the reluctant throats, but nothing seemed to have any effect. Women paced up and down around the hut, totally oblivious of the fact that they had left their festival meals half prepared. Each one was trying to imagine how she would have felt if Kwesi had been her child. And in imagination, they suffered more than the suffering mother. The gods and spirits of our fathers protect us from calamity. After what seemed an unbearable long time, the messenger, who had been earlier sent to Sodu, the village next to Bampo, to summon the chief medicine man, arrived, followed by the eminent doctor himself. He was renowned for his cure of snake bites. When he appeared, everyone gave a sigh of relief. They all remembered someone, perhaps a father, brother, or husband, had been snatched from the jaws of death. When he gave his potion to the boy, he would be violently sick, and then, of course, he would be out of the danger. The potion was given. 30 minutes, an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours. He had not rest. Before midnight, he was dead. No grown-up in Bamso village slept that night. Kwesi was the first boy to have died since the school was inaugurated some 6 years previously, and he was his mother's only child. She has no one now. We did not understand it. Life is not sweet. Thus ran the verdict. The morning was very beautiful. It seemed as if every natural object in and around the village had kept vigil too. So they too were tired. I was tired too. I had gone to bed at about 5 o'clock in the morning, and since it was a Saturday, I could not have a long sleep. At 10 o'clock, I was suddenly roused from sleep by shouting. I opened my window, but I could not see the speaker. Presently, Kweku Sam, one of the young men in the village, came past my window. "Good morning, Chicha," he shouted his greeting to me. "Good morning, Kwesi," I responded. "What is the shouting about?" "They are quarreling." "And what are they quarreling about?" "Each is accusing the other of having been responsible for the boy's death." "How?" "Chicha, I don't know. Only women make too much trouble for themselves. It seems as if they are never content to sit quiet, but they must always hurl abuse at each other. What has happened is too serious to be a subject for quarrel. Perhaps the village has displeased the girls in some unknown way, and that is why they have taken away this boy." He sighed. I could not explain it myself, and if the villagers believed that there was something more in Kwesi's death than the ordinary human mind could explain, who am I to argue? "Is Mamiama herself there?" "No, I have not seen her there." He was quiet, and I was quiet. "Chicha, I think I should go away now. I have just heard that my sister has given birth to a girl." So I smiled to myself. "Give her my congratulations and tell her I will come and see her tomorrow." Yo. He walked away to greet his new niece. I stood for a long time at the window, staring at nothing, while I heard snatches of words and phrases from the quarrel. and these were mingled with weeping. Then I turned from the window, looking into the little mirror on the wall. I was not surprised to see my whole face bathed in unconscious tears. I did not feel like doing anything at all. I toyed with the idea of going to see Mami Ama and then finally decided against it. I could not bear to face her, at least not yet. So I sat down thinking about him. I went over the most presumptuous daydreams I had indulged him on his account. I would have taken him away with me in spite of his mother's protest. She was just being absurd. The child is a boy, and sooner or later, she must learn to live without him. The highest class here is primary 6, and when I am going away, I will take him. I will give him a grammar education. Perhaps, who knows, one day he may win a scholarship to the university. In my daydreams, I had never determined what career he would have followed, but he would be famous, that was certain. Devastatingly handsome, he will be an idol of women, an envy of every man. He will visit Britain, America, and all those countries we have heard so much about. He will see all the 7 wonders of the world. Mommy shall be happy in the end. I had told myself, people will flock to see the mother of such an illustrious man. Although she has not had many children, she will be surrounded by her grandchildren. Of course, away from the village. In all these reveries, his father never had a place. But there I was, and there was Mami Ama, and there was his father, and he, that bone of contention, was lost to all three. I saw the highest castle I had built for him come tumbling down, noiselessly and swiftly. He was buried at 4 o'clock. I had taken the school children to where he lay in state. When his different relatives saw the little uniformed figure, they all forgot their differences and burst into loud lamentation. Chicha! Oh, Chicha! What shall I do now that Kwesi is dead? His grandmother addressed me. Kwesi, my beauty. Kwesi, my master. Kwesi, my own Kwesi. One aunt was chanting. Father Death has done me an ill turn. Chicha, the grandmother continued, my washing days are over, for who will give me water? My eating days are over, for who will give me food? I stood there, saying nothing. I had let the children sing Savior, Blessed Savior, and we are going to the cemetery with him. After the funeral, I went to the house of the mourning, as one should do after a burial. No one was supposed to weep again for the rest of the day. I sat there listening to the visitors who had come from neighboring villages. This is certainly sad, and it is most strange. School has become like business. Those who found it earlier for their children are eating more than the children themselves. To have a schoolboy snatched away like this is unbearable indeed, one woman said. Ah, do not speak. His father's younger sister broke in. We have lost a treasure. My daughter, said the grandmother again, Kwesi is gone, gone forever to our fathers, and what can we do? What can we do indeed? When flour is scattered in the sun, who can sift it? But this is the saddest I've heard, that he was his mother's only one. Is that so? Another visitor cried. I always thought she had many children. What does one do when one's only water pot breaks? She whispered. The question was left hanging in the air. No one dared say anything more. I went out. I never knew how I got there, but I saw myself approaching Mami Ahmed's hut. As usual, the door was opened. I entered the outer room. She was not there. Only sheep and goats from the village were busy munching the cassava and the yams. I looked into the inner chamber. She was there, still charred in the cloth she had worn to the divorce proceedings. She was not sitting, standing, or lying down. She was kneeling, and like one drowning who catches a straw, she was clenching Kwesi's books and school uniform at her breast. Mami Ama, Mami Ama, I called out to her. She did not move. I left her alone. Having driven the sheep and goats away, I went out, shuttered the door behind me. I must go home now. I spoke to myself once more. The sun was sinking behind the coconut palm. I looked at my watch. It was 6 o'clock. But this time, I did not run.